Hello, everyone, and welcome to the People Strategy for the Future of Work virtual conference. We're really excited that you're here. We're letting everybody come into the meeting. We know it's very early for some of you. Some of you, it's your afternoon. Some of you, we're waking up in the morning. So we've got people from all over the world joining us today. Very excited. We are delighted to learn more about managerial excellence today and how organizations can equip their managers with the tools they need to improve performance, enhance engagement, and expand growth in their organizations. Today, I'm talking with Sri Chellappa, the co-founder and CEO of Engagedly, and Chandler Barr, who is the Chief Growth Officer at Engagedly as well. We're going to sip some coffee, take in some headlines, and talk about today's agenda. So, good morning, gents. How are y'all doing?
Doing well, Jackie. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Another year, another conference. Really excited for our topic this year because we saw a lot of content coming through, especially from Gartner with their reports about how managers need more support throughout their organization in 2024. And everybody is looking for that uplift, that reskill, that organizational plan for them that's going to really move the needle in performance. So super excited to hear what we have going on. Sri, what other trends are you seeing in HR these days?
Well, there are a lot of trends. We've gone through so many different cycles of change since the pandemic. It's really hard to say what's a trend and what's a fad. But I will say one thing, though, that one of the things I will highlight is that it's a story of HR being stuck between a rock and a hard place because organizations are, being pressured to grow and grow profitably. We live in a capitalist society, so the stock market takes a toll on companies that don't do that. But at the same time, the skill requirements are rapidly evolving. A lot of young people are coming into managerial roles, like you said, and they need to be equipped. But there's not always enough budget and focus on employee development. But the other issue is there's not enough talent available in the market either. I was reading this report yesterday from the U.S. U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I should say. They published a report last month in February, actually, that if you compare February of 2019 to February of 2024, and this is going to be like a jaw-dropping, is 1.7 million Americans are missing from the workforce. We have 1.7 million fewer people working than we did.
Wow.
Since the beginning of the COVID. So that's taking into account that we've had a population increase, economy is expanding, companies are growing, but fewer workers, right? And what's causing that? And that's multiple challenges there. One is a lot of people left the workforce during the COVID, and many of them are not coming back. They're just done, and some of them obviously got nice, payouts from the government and decided it's time to retire. Younger people are, trying to focus more on, education and things like that. But we have a demographic shift too. People are having fewer babies, fewer kids, and generally speaking, we are not producing enough kids to have a replacement population rate. At the same time, skilled immigration is also going down. So immigration in general has been a big controversial topic, and immigration has been a big driver of U.S. economy and U.S. growth. And that's been coming down as well due to a lot of different changes in the immigration policy, but also in general, as other countries do well, there's less reason to immigrate, especially the skilled immigration. So we're talking about specifically skilled immigration here. So those are some of the underlying demographic changes in the U.S. Population that is driving more microcosm of changes in each organization. So HR has to do more, and that's why upskilling becomes more important, because now you have to figure out how to do more with less, and that's where AI holds a lot of promise, where AI can do, improve your productivity, improve automation, and drive better productivity with these 1.7 missing workers, essentially 1.7 million missing workers. So that's a big shift. I think there's a lot of promise in AI, and I can talk on and on about all the different impacts AI might have. But ultimately, I think those are some of the big trends that I am noticing that it will have generational impact on our workforce.
Definitely. Sri, how's the role of technology helping move that in an accelerated rate?
The thing is, the technology is one of, if not the main solution to fix this problem of a shrinking workforce and getting more from less, essentially, right? So Gen AI for example, Gen AI impact on productivity is going to be something that's going to actually have a major impact, especially if you start with things that can be fairly easily impacted by Gen AI. Those are contact centers, support, things of this nature, where Gen AI can answer queries without actually being a live support person. We have, language recognition, a lot of the new technologies coming out there. I feel like that's going to impact a lot of the support functions within organizations. The other big one is automation, right? So Engagely, for example, is a platform that automates a lot of HR functions in talent management, performance, learning and development, and employee engagement and things of this nature. So if you are in the process of doing these things manually with paper or Excel or something else, now we can automate a lot of those things, and that can actually drive a lot of high productivity within organizations. So technology will play a major role in driving productivity. The one thing I want to highlight here is that there was this other report I was reading the other day, that the Gen AI impact is not going to be immediate. There are going to be some immediate impacts, and overall impact on a lot of the jobs either completely disappearing or whittled down. But it's going to happen in three phases. There's the individual benefits, where even organizations like us, we are using Gen AI for our own work, whether it is creating summaries of documents or helping create different types of content or summarizing and reports, understanding analysis, things of this nature, which is already happening, and it'll happen in the first couple of years. The other big one, which is really using Gen AI to automate a lot of the workflows, that's probably going to be a 2 to 3 year life cycle, where Gen AI will be used to build workflows, provide those automated insights and nudges. So now you don't have to actually do that manually, right? So that's going to really improve productivity in business process flows and things of this nature. And that's a phase two, which I think we are at the beginning of that. And we'll see a lot of that in different systems, including Engagely as well. The big change, which will really take probably another 5 to maybe the next, the end of this decade, is really the full enterprise adoption of AI technologies and automating a lot of the workflows. So that's going to have a big impact in automating and driving better productivity within organizations. And all of that requires upskilling. So now people have to move away from your work. And if you were doing a lot of Excel work, your job is probably going to be gone. You need to figure out what is the next skill set you need to learn. If you are a developer, there are tools out there that can debug code for you. There are tools that actually take an English language and convert that into code. There are tools that are building websites just from some sample pictures and text. So that means elimination of a lot of those, what I would say, block and tackle development work to more high value development work. Then this is just technology, right? In technology workers, but it's going to impact retail workers. It's going to impact office workers, contact centers, I already mentioned. So all those roles now will be shrinking, and then you need to do high value work, which means you need to be upskilled. And if you're not using AI today as an employee, or if you're not getting into it as a manager or whatever role you are, somebody will take your job who's going to do that better. So that's a big one. And I know I went on a rant here, but I do believe the impact is going to be huge, but it's going to take time. So there's going to be some time to adjust.
Sounds like that's a lot of change management that HR professionals have to then take to the organization. How are they going to handle all of that work?
So the one thing that I talk about a lot in my podcasts as well as in my writings is that HR has to move away from being a transactional block and tackle role to more of a strategic role. And strategic role requires you to be more proactive and planning things in advance versus doing things more reactive. So what that means is HR needs to have a really good understanding of what the corporate strategy is for every organization they work with. What is their vision? And what does that mean for the workforce that they need to build for the future, right? So when you build a strategy that we're going to go to these new markets and we're going to launch these new products, or we're going to change some of our structure on our financials or whatever the different impacts are, HR needs to distill that down and say, okay, what does that mean for workforce skills I need to build? What type of workforce composition I need to have? What type of skill sets we need to have in our organization in the future? And then really understand what skill set we have today so they understand the gap between the two. So taking a proactive approach for workforce planning and workforce strategy requires you to understand organizational strategy. So the HR leaders who are not doing that today really need to shift that narrative. Otherwise, they're going to be the ones, again, I said, like a rock and a hard place, where if they don't do that.
Guys, thank you. I just want to say really quickly, I did not have the chat enabled. So if you are here joining us today, if you want to add in the chat where you're from and what coffee you're drinking this morning, I'd like to hear from you. Chandler, you had a question, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Sri, earlier in the call, you kind of had mentioned, there's a lot of fads in HR. There's a lot of changes that are happening in HR. What are some of the ways that people can kind of understand the difference between some of the fads that are kind of going to quickly burn out versus the changes that they need to hop on and really embrace to help drive the organization forward?
Yeah, I think the way to differentiate between the fad and the real trend is to maybe not be the first mover, maybe be the second mover, right? Try to really understand what is it that the real impact of that is. For example, there was a lot of, I'll give you an example of a fad that kind of never really became a trend, at least not yet, is around NFTs, for example. Not related to HR necessarily, but NFTs and blockchain. The blockchain does have some real world implications. A lot of organizations have started embracing it, especially in logistics, as well as in fintech. But in HR world, it has really very low impact. So if you were said, oh, well, how do I use blockchain in my HR work? And you started doing something there, you might have wasted a lot of time because there's really no real use case yet on that. But if you look at the fad, which started as a fad to some extent, is skill-based organizations. And that's becoming more and more real as more and more organizations are moving to a skill-based organization versus a job title role-based organization. And that's a shift that's going to be fairly gradual because we don't really have a good way to capture skills and keep our skills updated in our systems because we have to really get it out of our people. And that's where AI can potentially help. So some of these things have to converge, the AI, the technology, people behaviors, as well as the organizational constructs where we move away from a pure hierarchical approach to more skill-based distributed workforce, where we have networked approaches to accomplishing things within the organizations. Those are some real organizational behavior changes, organizational process changes that organizations have to embrace. So in all these changes, people are involved and people don't move as fast as technology. So there's going to be some time for them to understand what's a real fad versus what's a real trend.
Got it. Well, today we have a lot of sessions to cover that are going to answer a lot of these questions. I think we have, let me share my screen real quick, just to give everyone an overview of the different sessions that you're going to see. This is all in Central Standard Time here. So if you are on a different time zone, be sure to check your calendar for the correct time. First, we have goals and OKRs, starting from basics all the way to advanced. I think this is an area where a lot of people kind of overlook, and knowing engagedly, Sri, this is the foundation of what we believe, right? That we should start with the business objectives and work out from there.
Yeah, I mean, OKRs, I'm a big fan of OKRs in general, although the implementation of OKRs always is very difficult because it does require some understanding of how to write your goals effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens, and this is going to be, that's why it's important to have the session for our audience as well, is that people mix activities for outcomes. There's activities and there's outcomes, and OKRs focus more on outcomes, which is results, not so much on activities, because you can do a lot of activities and busy work, but if you're not achieving those results, then really you're not moving the needle. And OKR really focus on how do you focus on measurable time-bound activities, time-bound goals, and have real key results to measure the progress towards those goals. And so we'll hear a lot about how to do that well. And the nice thing about OKRs and or any other goal setting, which typically, if you do it well, is that it should align to the overall organizational objective. So if it is, because there's always so much noise and there's so much things that people want to do, but not everything necessarily needs to be done because they don't necessarily add the real value, or they don't align to the organization strategy, right? So that's where I think a good goal setting process and a approach will really help the organization. So I'm excited about proselytizing, if you will, this concept out there.
Chandler, what session are you looking forward to today?
Oh, one that's near to my heart. The 10:30 with Tina Robinson, all for one and one for all, how to develop leaders at all levels. To me, coming from a military background, being in sales, I just truly appreciate leadership at all levels. Pushing leadership down to the lowest level possible, I think, is extremely important, and making sure we are empowering, training, and making sure the people that are out there managing and supporting that frontline workforce are equipped to do it, and just have every tool they need. It's just really like near and dear to my heart. So really excited to see what Tina has for that one. I know she's a rock star. So that 10:30, I will definitely be on. So.
And we just took personality tests just recently, and you were a coach commander. So that is perfectly aligned with your personality there.
100%.
Me, myself, I'm looking forward to difficult conversations with Dr. Eileen Ringler. It's a manager's guide, so this is perfect. And I think this is one of the places that a lot of managers can struggle with. And I experienced this coming up in my own career. Once you get to manager level, you think it's all about helping to manage the work, but you don't really think about managing the people and their processes too. So having difficult conversations always comes up, and it's something that a lot of managers try to avoid. This is going to be a very important session for people to attend who need to get over that hump and really want to make it to the next level.
Great. Yeah, the one session I am excited about is ED's session, which is about employee experience, and I think employee experience is going to be very, very important because, as I mentioned, you can't afford to lose people, at least the good people, definitely, because there is a talent shortage. So employee experience is not only focusing on how to build a better employee experience, but also how to build growth within your organization so that you can have the best, everybody realize their full potential for best organizational outcomes. So she's going to obviously focus on some of the listening tools so that we can understand what people really feel and need, especially in a hybrid workforce. It's hard to know that when you don't see people face to face every day. And then the other one around employee experience is a lot of the employee experience is crafted and is by the manager, right? Because ultimately that's the person you probably talk to the most, if not a lot. And the experience of the employee of working with their manager in terms of their development, their one-on-ones, their objectives that they set, all of those things matter in the long-term retention of an employee. So she's going to talk a lot about how to do better job as a manager to drive that employee experience there.
Awesome. And then at the end of the day, our last session at 1:30, it's not on this, but there is one more session. You do have it in your calendar. It is our roadmap session. So Engagedly is going to review all of the new products and features that we're coming out with in the system for 2024. And we're going to introduce some really interesting things. You really need to be on that call. Also, we are going to give away a Stanley mug for every person who, not for every person, I'm sorry. That would be great, right? So for everyone who is in attendance, you will be entered into a drawing to win a Stanley mug. That mug will be given away to 7 participants today. If you've seen our advertising on LinkedIn, you would have seen the mug featured in our Marissa blue color. Marissa AI is our generative AI tool inside Engagedly. If you've never used our tool, really awesome. And we'll be talking more about that today too. All right, guys, this has been a great kickoff session. Thank you so much for your time sipping coffee with me and talking about the trends. Everybody in the chat, I hope to see you on our next sessions today. Remember that everything will be recorded and we will be sending it out to you in email. So make sure to add engagedly on your safe senders list and check your spam folder just in case something dropped in there. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next session. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.